Hello everyone and welcome to my new video. And what is this video about? Well, I'm going to talk about ADSR. And what do those letters mean? Well, they stand for Attack, Decay, Sustain, Release. And so what do those words mean? Well, they stand for the various stages of a function that takes place over a period of time to modulate or have an effect on something in sound. Anything from the amplitude of the volume, the cutoff of the filter frequency, perhaps even the pitch of a sample or an oscillator. They're essentially modulators. They're like LFOs, but they happen when you tell them to happen. And often with music and MIDI and stuff, that happens when you instantiate a MIDI note, press a key on your keyboard or hit a pad on your drum pad. And for some of you that have been playing around with synthesizers for a long time, you're probably going to know all this stuff. But there might be some of you out there that are like, I don't know, I don't get it. Well, I'm going to show you some things, and hopefully by the end of this, you will be ADSR certified. I'm going to use Ableton's sampler for this, because it's probably my favorite instrument, but pretty much every synthesizer, sampler, drum machine, anything that has synthesis capabilities is going to have an attack, decay, sustain, release, or sometimes called an envelope, sometimes called a function, what have you. There are also different types of them. There's like ADHSR, which is attack, decay, hold, sustain, release. Actually, in this instance here, we've also got initial and peak. But I won't really be going into those too much because they're a little bit more part of Ableton's ecosystem, whereas attack, decay, sustain, release is pretty much going to be on any sort of hardware or software instrument, and it's going to enable you to shape and sculpt sound in a way that will help you realize your vision. Well, I suppose sound isn't really a vision, is it? So what's in your head, what you're hearing in your head, if you know how to use an attack, decay, sustain, release, you'll be able to realize some of these ideas, whether you want to make short, plucky sounds or you want to make long, bowed, paddy sounds or stuff like that. It's all to do with your envelopes. So let's get to it. In order to demonstrate this, I've created a little MIDI clip here, which you can see up here, which has a white noise sample in it. So initially, I'm going to talk you through what everything does. So attack, you can actually see here, we've got this little graph thing. This is pretty nice. You can quickly set the attack, decay, sustain, etc. pretty quickly. So let's start with the attack. The attack is how long it takes for the function to go from one stage to this stage, another stage. Often in milliseconds, although in Ableton you can do that in beats and stuff, but we'll just concentrate in milliseconds. So the attack time is going to go from this point to this point at the time specified by the attack time. We can do 20 seconds in Ableton, or we can do 0. The decay is what comes after the attack, and that is how long it takes for the sound to dip back down to this stage, right? So with an attack time of, say, 1 second and a decay time of 1 second, a sound or event will rise up to this point over the course of 1 second and then come back down over the course of 1 second to this stage, which is the sustain. So you can see as I change the sustain here, this little guy goes up and down. And that is the level that the sound is at after the decay stage. And that is predetermined by how long you hold your MIDI note for, or how long your MIDI note is in your sequence. So if you were to play that on a keyboard, the sustain is the level that it's at whilst you're holding the note until you release it. And then you have the release time, which is set here. So attack, decay, sustain, release. I think I explained that pretty well, didn't I? I'm going to celebrate. Okay, so why don't we hear it with some sound? I've got a sampler here with a little bit of white noise sampled into it. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to take down the attack time take down the decay time and the release time, and just have the sustain. This is a sample, so I've got it looping. Just pretend it's like an oscillator or a noise generator or something. And what should happen is that because the sustain level is at maximum, we'll hear the sound at this volume for the entire duration that this note here is held. So let's have a listen to that. Right. So essentially that's kind of like an organ. That's like ways organs work and stuff like that. It's essentially on or off with full sustain. If we actually have everything at 0, well, technically we have like 1 millisecond decay and 1 millisecond release. Let's see what that sounds like. Well, it's nothing, isn't it? Listen, you can't even hear it. It's just a little... Okay? That's because basically there's no time to let any of the sound out. So... let's try maxing out some attack here. Let's go for a 150 millisecond attack and see what that sounds like. Okay. Okay. So it rises and then stops. So let's go for a little bit longer. Let's maybe max that out. This MIDI note lasts for 2 bars at 140 BPM. I don't know how long that is in time. That doesn't quite say. It's about 3 seconds. So, okay, let's maybe put this to about 2 seconds 70. Let's see what this is. There we go. Okay, so what happened there was over the course of 2 seconds, it rose up in volume, and then after that point, it dropped to 0, to nothing, because we had no decay, no release, and no sustain. So let's try that now. Slightly shorter attack time, and now with a decay time of roughly the same, let's say about, yeah, just about a second or something. Just under. Okay, let's see what that sounds like. Right. So what happened was it rose up in volume and then quickly came back down. But, you know, not quickly, but, you know, it sloped. It slowly faded out. Well, it quickly faded out. I'm getting my terms wrong. But you get the idea. So if I increase the decay time here, it'll fade out for a longer period of time. Okay, you can hear how it didn't actually finish its decay time because the MIDI note, the decay time is only active for whilst you're holding a MIDI note. Okay, so if your decay time is shorter than, or rather longer than the length of your MIDI note, then it's going to cut off. So actually, why don't we go for a slightly shorter attack time, slightly shorter decay time, and try and fit that into our MIDI event here. All right. So you can hear there was a little bit of a fade in, and then there was a slow fade out. And then it cuts off. So if we try that with no attack, absolutely no attack at all, then all we're going to get is an instant loud sound, and then it's going to slowly fade away for as long as the note is held. Okay, if we go for a very short decay time, then we're getting into kind of percussive territory. And with white noise, this is good for hi-hats, you know. Sorry, just play it from the pads here. Okay, so that's very snappy. If I increase that. Okay, but if I cut the note off ahead of time, then the decay time doesn't get its full course because the decay time is only active whilst a note is on. So if I hold it, then we'll get the full decay time. 3 seconds. But if I let go halfway through, it's going to cut off. So what does that mean? Well, it means that there's no release time. So the release time is how long a sound will last after you release the note. So if I was to increase the release time here to, well, let's just max it out. And then let's work with this MIDI note that we have here. So this MIDI note is just 2 bars long. I've set the release time to 60 seconds. Let's just see what happens. Okay, that was... Let's give it a slightly longer decay time. Okay, so you can see that the sound is still going even though the MIDI note has stopped. That's because we've given it an incredibly high release time. So if I maybe try that again with a shorter decay time. Okay, let's maybe slightly higher decay time. There you go. You can see the sound is still going, even though the MIDI note has stopped. So release time is different to decay time because release is the way the envelope behaves once you release the MIDI note. See, release, the clue's in the name. So let's have a look at sustain. So sustain is the level that the sound will be at after the decay time, but whilst you're still holding the note. So if I actually made this note here like a little bit longer, let's make it 4 bars. And let's stretch this out here. Okay, there we go. So what I can do is I can tell the envelope to rise the volume, pull the volume back down, and then hold it for as long as I want with my MIDI note. And then when I let go of my MIDI note, or there is no MIDI note in the sequencer, it will slowly fade back down. Okay? There are some synths I've seen that give you like a little visual representation of this whilst it's happening, which is kind of nice. Where did I see that? Can't remember where I saw that. Anyway. Okay. Okay. Let's pull that release time back a little bit. Let's go for a slow attack, a fast decay, a sustain of like -30, and quite a short release time. So what we should hear is the sound come up, come back down, stay until this point, and then fade away. Much like we've drawn here. Okay, let's have a listen to that. Beautiful. Let's go for a shorter attack time. So you can hear how it faded in, suddenly dipped, stayed at a level, and then faded out when the MIDI note finished. Let's try that again. Oh, okay, that was too short. Let's increase that attack time a little bit. Let's maybe go a slightly longer decay time as well. So we're going to rise up about 500 milliseconds, decay about 1.5 seconds, sustain, hold for as long as this MIDI note, and then release for 2 seconds when the MIDI note finishes. There we go. So that was an envelope applied to the volume, but it doesn't end there. In fact, we haven't even scratched the surface. Envelopes are so much fun. They're like LFOs, but they're a little bit more tweaky, and they're great for percussion. If you want to make a kick drum, you got to know how envelopes work, and you got to know where to use them. I could probably try and make a kick drum with this white noise sample. Do you think? Because I can take the same concept and apply it to other parameters in this instrument. So I'll try and get a kick drum. Anyway, let's turn on the filter. Okay. To start with, if I was going to make maybe it'll be like a tom sound, like a tom-tom sound. It will sound like a drum anyway. So can you hear that as I... So I was just tapping the push there. But there's a little bit of... That's release afterwards. The actual decay time is how quickly the sound goes to the release time. Oh, until I release it. Anyway, forget about it. Right, let's turn the release down. Let's turn the decay down a little bit. Okay, so we have an envelope here for our filter. And most commonly, when you use a filter envelope, that envelope is often linked to the frequency or the cutoff of the filter that you're using. Depending on the type of instrument that you have, how flexible it is, you could route that to some other things. But in this default state, this filter envelope is linked to this frequency cutoff. So why don't we explore that? I'm going to start by turning up the amount of the filter, and I'm going to pull the decay down a little bit. I'm going to increase the resonance of the filter, and then start to pull down the frequency. Can you hear how it's going chum chum? That's because what it's doing is that this envelope is sweeping down this. So you can imagine that it's actually pinging this down really, 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 really fast. So fast that you can't really see it, but you can hear it. So as I change the frequency position and the resonance position and the the decay time, we can start to get these slightly percussive sounds. Let's increase the decay and release on the amplitude. Let's bring that volume back up a little bit. Oh, there we go. That's kind of a kick drum. It's a little subtle. Maybe I could just overdrive it. That's a pretty good kick drum. And all of that is just filtered white noise with an envelope on the filter to make it really snappy. And a bit of distortion. So let's try it with the attack. There you go. You can hear it sort of sounds like it's sort of sweeping up. Because what's happening is that imagine the filter frequency is sweeping up and then coming back down. There you go. So, oh, that's good. Get good percussion sounds. Okay. All right. So we've applied an ADSR to the filter envelope, but it doesn't stop there. Or it doesn't stop there. Well, actually, I did have another sample. I don't know if white noise would be a good example for this. So I've got a vocal sample on another clip here, and I'm going to use this instead. Oh my God. Just turn that down a little bit. It's a pretty generic session sort of lick. So, why don't we, I'm just going to maybe sort of loop a little portion of this here, or maybe let's go for... Okay, so yeah, we looked with the white noise, we looked at the amplitude and the filter. Now let's look at the pitch. So I can take the same approach, attack, decay, sustain, release, and apply it to the pitch of a sound. So right now, if I trigger this sound, it's just playing at its normal pitch. But if I increase the amount of this pitch envelope and start to play around with the attack and decay times, you can hear how it's sweeping down in pitch super fast. If I increase the attack, you can hear how it's going up in pitch a little bit. Let's maybe pull the amount down a little. Okay, so in Ableton, we've kind of got this initial and this peak. So the peak is actually sort of like a precursor to the sustain. So whilst in most cases the attack time is the time that happens after the hang on, did I say that right? The decay time is the time that happens after the attack time. The peak is actually the volume at which the attack peaks at before the decay time. So I've kind of just been maxing the whole thing out, but we can actually pull down the peak. So in some other cases, you might not want to sweep up and down like so far. Oh, scratchy. So So yeah, all kinds of pitch modulation stuff that can be done in very percussive ways. If I loop the sample, oh, not there. I don't want to loop it there. I want to loop it here. That's not what I want. Okay, let's do it like here. There we go. So you can hear how it sort of started really, really high in pitch and then slowly came down in pitch until this sort of resting point. We can go up as well, I think. Whoa. And this is an interesting envelope. This is like a bipolar, like bidirectional envelope. So we can actually sweep down and then come back up just by changing the peak value. Fun. So you get some nice sort of scratchy stop starts there. So, in conjunction with the pitch envelope and the amplitude envelope, so I've been holding the note the entire time. Maybe I just want to strike the note just once. So in most cases, what I would do is actually I would just max out the decay and the release. So I'm not holding the note anymore, I just pressed it once. You can hear how it's changing. Whoops. So now I'm holding it. And now I've let go. So this envelope has actually got more options. So not only have we got attack, decay, sustain, release, initial and peak, we also have end. Do any of the others have those? No, so the amplitude envelope has initial and peak. What about the filter? Oh yeah, that has an end time as well. So yeah, basically it's a multi-stage function. You could think, if you were to think of it as like an LFO, it's like an LFO, but you are in more control over the shape of that single cycle of an LFO. So we're going up, and then I'm going to let go. And then when I let go, it's going to come down to this stage. Okay. But it doesn't stop there. No. Okay, shut up. Okay. So the reason why I picked sampler is because there's lots of options in here, and indeed, depending on what type of sampler or synthesizer you're using, there may be lots of other routing destinations there as well. So anyway, so I've now got the, did I turn that off? Yeah. So I'm done with the pitch envelope. I've got the volume set with a full sustain, no attack, no decay, no release. So this is essentially like an organ. So if I just press the note, it'll stay active until I release. Okay, on, off. Okay, so in the modulation section of sampler, we've got this auxiliary envelope. And this is like the LFOs in sampler, but it's an envelope. But it has all the same destinations that the LFOs do. So I can use an envelope here, an attack, decay, sustain, release, initial, peak, and end envelope to modulate certain parameters in sampler. So we can do all of the things that we've already been doing. We could do it to the volume. Let's try that. I'm going to make this slightly shorter so it's sort of just, yeah, just like that. So I've linked it to the volume. All right, you can get these sort of almost sound like echoes, right? We could do the same thing to the pitch. So it's just sweeping all the way down and then resting at this point. give it some attack. So it sweeps up and then sweeps back down and then comes down to this point. So I've done that to the pitch. But this is sampler. We can put this to like loads of things. So why don't we put it to like the loop start position or the loop start or the sample offset. Let's go with loop start. So I can actually use an envelope here to scrub the loop start position around. I think I need to put that there. So effectively kind of using the envelope to sort of move this thing around. So why don't we try that? It might be difficult to sort of see. Hopefully we'll hear it, but I'll put it to loop start. Let's see what it's going to do. Okay, let's put some fade in there. So you can see how it's sort of scrubbed through and then scrubbed back. So effectively, this is the 0 point. This is the high point. So it kind of, it sort of moved up and then came back down because we have a slow attack time and a slow decay time. Where is it? Let's go back and have a look at that again. So it's going to come up and then sort of come to a dead stop here because that's what's happening at this point. If we went for a faster attack time, it will spring forward really quickly and then come back down. Okay, that was a little too fast. Let's go for like 100 milliseconds. So you can see there that when I release my finger, it kind of stops. That's kind of in conjunction with the fact that I've got the sustain up here. But we could see what we could do with the release time and then the end. Oh, the end stage only goes. So this is a unipolar envelope, unlike the pitch one, which was bipolar. So let's put the end like at maximum. And so what should happen is that whilst I hold the note, it's going to sweep up to this stage, come back down, and then stay at this stage until I release the note, and then it's going to sweep up back to this stage, I think. Okay, I'm going to let go now. Oh no, that didn't work. We need to have a long release time on the amplitude as well. I'm starting to get complicated now. Right, let's try that again. So sweep up, quick sweep up, slow sweep down, stay until I release the note, and then it's going to scroll back. Let's see what. Okay, I let go of the note. So you can think of it as what happens when I press the note, what happens whilst I'm holding the note, and what happens after I let go of the note. These are all important things that you might need to think about when you're making music or performing. It's very much a performance thing as well. If you want to do like a funky bass on a synth, you want that 80s funky bass sound, what are you going to do? Well, you might need to put a very sharp envelope on the filter to make it go boom, 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 you know, and you might need to think about what's going to happen when I release the key. Do I want the note to stop dead? Do I want it to tail off? Do I want a little bit of tail? Do I want it to tail off forever? It's all good stuff. Okay, I'm going to let go of the note now. And there's the release time. So let's do that in conjunction with the pitch envelope and see what we get. Okay. All right, and let's do it with the filter. So let's put a filter envelope on there as well. And still going. Okay. And let's see what we get with this. Oh, we need to turn the filter envelope up. Different filters. Oh my. So That's all the filters at once. Or rather all the envelopes at once. Let's bring in some attack. So, yeah, this is getting a little bit silly. Anyway, so you get, hopefully let's turn all those off now. Okay, gosh, that's still going. Right, okay. So before I kind of wrap it up, because I hope I've covered everything and made enough of a racket, definitely explore looping envelopes to unusual parameters. I mean, you could loop an envelope to the rate of an LFO, which could be fun, so that over the course of you holding your MIDI note, an LFO speed could start really fast and then get slower and slower and slower, you know. Or maybe even the drive of the filter, or even the amount of another envelope. It all starts to get juicy and deep. But one more thing I wanted to look at was I wanted to look at the fact that you can loop envelopes. So then we start to get into LFO territory, but we have carte blanche over the shape of the LFO. Most LFOs are kind of sine waves, square waves, sawtooth waves, sample and hold, triangles, things like that. But with a looping envelope, it can be kind of any shape you want. So let's try. I'm going to loop a tiny little part of this. So it's just sort of a synthesizer sound. And I'm going to put the pitch envelope on, and maybe sort of reset all of this junk. What did I do here? Let's put all these back. So we've just got a very quick, well, actually, a fairly quick pitch modulation with some slow decay, fast attack. But now if I put the envelope into loop, then it's going to go round and 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 round. So I'm going to give me some amplitude envelope with full sustain so that the note just stays on for as long as I hold the note. And I'm going to play around with the attack and decay of the pitch envelope so that you can hear, which is cycling, so you can hear how I'm sort of... Interesting, right? Yeah, and also if you double click, or actually no, you don't need to double click. If you just click where it says attack, decay, and release, it reveals this little sort of, I don't know what you would call that, sort of terracotta kind of second page for the parameters, which allows you to set the curve, whether it's, well, I guess logarithmic, exponential, or linear. I don't know. But I mean, if I was to, you can actually do it with these little things here. So you can see how I'm changing the curve time there. This is also quite nice too. I've put the sustain at... Okay. Hang on, what happened here? So you can hear how you can get like interesting modulation slopes, if you will. I don't know if these are like MIDI mappable. Oh yeah, they are. So you could MIDI map that and screw around with that if you want. All getting a little bit silly. Whoa. It's fun on filters as well. Let's do the cycling LFO, cycling envelope on the filter. Get some. You get these kind of bouncing ball type sounds if we go for a low pass. Whoa. Still going. Oh, my goodness. I think on filters it can get a little bit 2007 dubstep with the wub-wubs, but like, you know, you can find some interesting modulation shapes by looping an envelope. Yeah, I like that kind of slow whipping kind of sound. That's fun. I don't know in what musical context I would use something like that, but it's quite satisfying. Okay, so I think that's basically everything I'm going to talk about envelopes and ADSRs, although maybe I'll probably do some more talking about it in other videos. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found that useful, and I hope now you feel a little bit more confident at diving into the world of envelopes and attack, decay, sustain, release parties. I'm going to go and put this set on my Patreon now, where I don't really know if it would be a particularly thrilling set to download, but I'm going to do it anyway. So if you would like to support me on Patreon and get access to all my Ableton stuff, all my downloads and everything, you know, my whole life's on there pretty much. And there's some lovely people there, and we're all chatting and hanging out, and sometimes we have little get-togethers on Zoom, and it's a good laugh. So, okay, thanks everyone. See you next time. Bye.